Lebanon to work towards naming Prime Minister next week. Nicolas Maduro sworn in as Venezuelan president for a third time. Good afternoon and salam Malaysia Madani. Thanks for tuning in. You're watching World Today with me, Daryl Baptist. Lebanon's new president, Joseph Aoun, will start consultations with political parties towards naming a prime minister from next week. Forming a government is key to lifting the war-battered country out of the worst financial crisis of its history. After more than 2 years of deadlock resulting from deep political divisions, Lebanese lawmakers elected Army Chief Aoun as head of state. His office said the president will on Monday hold parliamentary consultations in which he will receive representatives of all blocs in the chamber, as well as independent lawmakers, towards naming a head of government. As he took office on Thursday, Aoun pledged to work towards naming a new prime minister who would be a partner and not an opponent as soon as possible. He noted the importance of choosing a prime minister who can gain the confidence of the international community and carry out urgently needed reforms to relaunch the economy. The process of selecting a prime minister and forming a government is often drawn out, as the president must receive approval from a majority of lawmakers before he can name the head of government. Israel struck South Lebanon yesterday, killing at least 5 people. The airstrike further strained a fragile ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, which came into effect on 27th November last year. The Lebanese state-run national news agency said an Israeli drone targeted a car in Ter Debar, a village near the coastal city of Tyre, some 20 kilometers from the Israeli border. A Lebanese security source said that a rocket launcher was hit and several munitions had exploded. The strike came with little more than a fortnight left to complete the implementation of the November ceasefire, which both sides have accused each other of violating. Under the ceasefire, the Lebanese army is to deploy alongside United Nations peacekeepers in the south of the Israeli army withdraws over a 60-day period, which expires on 26 January. The UN peacekeeping force in Lebanon accused Israel of a flagrant violation of the Security Council resolution, which forms the basis of the ceasefire. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro was sworn in for a third term, in a ceremony decreed as illegitimate by the opposition and internationally. Maduro, adorned with an oversized yellow, blue and red sash, shrugged off the outcry over his unproven claim to have won another 6-year term, saying that his investiture was a great victory for Venezuelan democracy. He expressed hope that the new presidential term would be a period of peace, prosperity, equality and the new democracy, adding that he would convene a commission dedicated to constitutional reform. He added that this act is possible because Venezuela is peaceful, in full exercise of its national sovereignty and of its national independence. In a sign of Maduro's isolation, only 2 prominent regional leaders attended his inauguration, while Russian President Vladimir Putin sent his congratulations. Traditional left-wing allies, including Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, pointedly stayed away from the ceremony, which sparked protests across Venezuela a day earlier. His third term could see him remain in office until 2033, 4 years more than his mentor, the late socialist firebrand Hugo Chavez. On a related note, the United States imposed new sanctions on 8 Venezuelan officials and increased to $25 million the reward it is offering for the arrest of President Nicolas Maduro on the day of his inauguration following a disputed election last year. It was the latest in a series of punitive steps by the outgoing Joe Biden administration against Maduro's government in the aftermath of the July vote, which both his ruling Socialist Party and the opposition claimed to have won. As Washington rolled out the new sanctions, Secretary of State Antony Blinken called the inauguration illegitimate, saying the US does not recognize Nicolas Maduro as the president of Venezuela. The officials targeted included Venezuela's transportation minister, Ramon Velasquez, as well as police and military officials. The US move was coordinated with announcements by Britain and the European Union targeting 15 Venezuelan officials, including members of the National Electoral Council and the security forces. Canada also imposed new Venezuela sanctions. On Friday, described as shameful, the decision by social media company Meta Platforms to scrap its US fact-checking program on Facebook, Instagram and Threads. Social media company Meta Platforms on Tuesday scrapped its fact-checking program and reduced curbs on discussions around contentious topics.
Thanks for your patience. It's just completely contrary to everything America's about. We want to tell the truth. We haven't always done it as a nation, but we want to tell the truth. And the idea that, a billionaire can buy something and say, by the way, from this point on, we're not gonna fact check anything. And when you have millions of people going online, reading this stuff, it is, anyway, I think it's really shameful.
The move is Meta's biggest overhaul of its approach to managing political content on its services in recent memory and comes as CEO Mark Zuckerberg has been signaling a desire to mend fences with the incoming administration. The changes will affect Facebook, Instagram and Threads, three of the world's biggest social media platforms with more than 3 billion users globally. We now go to China, who has said it has ample fiscal policy space and tools to support economic growth this year and plans to step up spending to spur investment. According to a statement by its Vice Finance Minister Liao Min at a press conference on Friday, more proactive fiscal policy can be expected in 2025.
这个财政赤字率呢，将为今年 经济发展呢注入更多的动力。这个赤字率提高以后，可以更多的利用这个财政空间，扩大这个财政的支出规模。
He said the ministry will closely monitor the international and domestic situation and adjust policies scientifically and dynamically, carrying out subsequent measures step by step to provide strong support for economic and social development. The country's finance ministry will also roll out new measures to boost employment in the culture, tourism and foreign trade sectors. In December, China's top leaders pledged to increase the budget deficit, issue more debt and loosen monetary policy to maintain a stable economic growth rate, according to a summary of the Central Economic Work Conference. Trump avoids jail or any other punishment over hush money trial. That and more coming up next.
Balik. Cantik. Sihat tak? Aku belakang lah sihat ke tak? Ha?
Kenapa kedua-dua orang tidak menjawab pertanyaan masing-masing? Ketahui status kesihatan diri. Lakukan saringan kesihatan sebelum anda menjawab saya sihat.
Welcome back. US President-elect Donald Trump will not go to jail or face any other punishment for his criminal conviction stemming from hush money paid to an adult actress. However, the court said Trump's inauguration would not erase the jury verdict. Justice Juan Mercan's sentencing of Trump to unconditional discharge places a judgment of guilt on his record and closes a case that had loomed over Trump's bid to retake the White House. Trump will be the first president to take office with a felony criminal conviction. Merchan said he was imposing the sentence sparing Trump jail, a fine, or probation because the U.S. Constitution shields presidents from criminal prosecution. However, he said the protections afforded to the office do not reduce the seriousness of a crime or justify its commission in any way. Merchan added the protections do not provide the power to erase jury verdicts. Trump pleaded not guilty and has vowed to appeal the guilty verdict. He called the case an unsuccessful attempt to thwart his re-election campaign. Now that he has been sentenced, Trump is free to pursue the appeal, a process which could take years and play out while he is serving a 4-year term as president.
If I did something wrong, I would.
The United States and Britain have announced sanctions against Russia's energy sector, including oil giant Gazprom Neft, just days before outgoing President Joe Biden leaves office. The U.S. Treasury Department said it was designating more than 180 ships, as well as Russian oil majors Gazprom Neft and Sugutneftegas, fulfilling the G7 commitment to reduce Russian revenues from energy. In total, the United States announced sanctions against almost 400 people and entities. At the same time, the UK government also announced sanctions against the two companies, saying their profits were lining Russian President Vladimir Putin's war chest and facilitating the war in Ukraine. It said taking on Russian oil companies will drain Russia's war chest. Gazprom Neft considers the decision to include its assets on the sanctions list as baseless, illegitimate, and contrary to the principles of free competition. The announcement came just 10 days before Biden is due to step down and put President-elect Donald Trump in something of an awkward position given his stated desire to end the Ukraine war on day one of his presidency. A light aircraft crashed near Malindi Airport in Kenya, killing at least 3 people on the ground, while all 3 on board survived the tragedy. According to the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority, the plane crashed at 2:52 p.m. local time, about 2 kilometers from the airport. The Cessna 172, operated by Kenya Aeronautical College, was on a training flight to Nairobi when it developed mechanical issues after takeoff. The aircraft struck a motorcycle on the Malindi-Mombasa highway, killing the rider, a woman, as well as an infant. Witnesses said the plane caught fire on impact. The pilot, instructor and student suffered minor injuries and were taken to hospital. Government agencies are investigating the cause of the crash. Local residents called for enhanced safety measures around the airport following the incident. In regards to another tragedy, firefighters have finally started gaining control over 2 major wildfires on the eastern and western flanks of Los Angeles as fierce winds that supercharged the fires for days finally eased. 6 simultaneous wildfires have devastated Los Angeles County neighborhoods since Tuesday, killing at least 11 people and destroying nearly 10,000 structures. With thousands of people suddenly homeless and the thickening smoke leading U.S. officials to declare a public health emergency, firefighters reported progress arresting the Palisades fire on the western edge of the city and the Eaton fire in the foothills east of the sprawling metropolis. After burning out of control for days, the Palisades fire was 8% contained and the Eaton fire 3%. Even so, the fires combined had consumed more than 34,000 acres. According to the National Weather Service, conditions in the Los Angeles area will improve through the weekend, with sustained winds slowing to about 32 kilometers per hour. Any easing would allow more crucial support from aircraft, dropping water and fire retardant on the flaming hills. The Basilica of Guadalupe in Mexico City transformed into the principal weapons collection hub on Friday as part of a national voluntary disarmament initiative aimed at curbing the country's escalating crime rates. The effectiveness of this program, however, remained under scrutiny due to Mexico's persistent violence issues. The Yes to Disarmament, Yes to Peace program, for the first time, involves churches, predominantly Catholic ones in violence-ridden regions, accepting firearms from volunteers in exchange for up to slightly over 26,000 pesos, equivalent to approximately $1,255. Mexican authorities have said they will not probe the weapons' origins or the identities of the individuals handing them over. Mexico has been grappling with bloody bouts of violence, primarily due to clashes among criminal groups wielding powerful weapons, many of which are smuggled into the country from the United States. With the country recording more than 2,000 monthly homicides, a majority of which involve firearms, the Mexican government has urged the United States to assist in restricting the inflow of weapons into the country. Global temperatures in 2024 exceeded 1.5 degrees Celsius above the pre-industrial levels for the first time, bringing the world closer to breaching the pledge governments made under the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement. The World Meteorological Organization confirmed the breach after reviewing data from US, UK, Japan and EU scientists. It explained that 6 international data sets all confirmed that 2024 was the hottest year on record, extending a decade-long extraordinary streak of record-breaking temperatures. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said global heating is a cold, hard fact, adding that blazing temperatures in 2024 require trailblazing climate action this year. He noted that there is still time to avoid the worst of climate catastrophe, but leaders must act now. The European Union's Copernicus Climate Change Service said climate change was pushing the planet's temperature to levels never before experienced by modern humans. Climate change is worsening storms and torrential rainfall because a hotter atmosphere could hold more water, leading to intense downpours. Scientists have linked climate change to greenhouse gas emissions, mainly from burning fossil fuels. Still to come in sports, Rashford to make return in Man United's lineup against Arsenal. Manchester United forward Marcus Rashford is available for Sunday's FA Cup third-round tie at Arsenal. Manager Ruben Amorim said on Friday the 27-year-old Rashford was left out of the squad for 4 straight matches before being an unused substitute in United's home defeat to Newcastle United on 30th December. The academy product then fell ill and missed their 2-2 draw at Liverpool last week. Amorim first dropped Rashford for the 2-1 derby win at Manchester City in mid-December, 2 days before the England international said he was ready for a new challenge after spending his entire career at United since the age of 7. Rashford has scored 138 goals in 426 appearances since making his senior debut for the club in 2016, winning the Europa League, 2 FA Cups and the League Cup twice. Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta, meanwhile, revealed he expects it to be a beautiful game when the two teams face off. Arsenal handed Amorim his first loss as United manager in a 2-0 Premier League win last month. But United, 13th in the league, have shown sparks of potential in a 2-1 win at Manchester City and last weekend's 2-2 draw at leaders Liverpool. David Moyes has agreed a deal to return as Everton manager, according to reports on Friday, more than a decade after the Scot left Merseyside for Manchester United in 2013. The 61-year-old is set to replace Sean Dyche, who was sacked on Thursday after a difficult start to the season, leaving the Toffees flirting with relegation. Everton are currently 16th in the Premier League table, 1 point above the drop zone. The Scots' last job was at West Ham United, where he ended the London club's 43-year trophy drought by winning the UEFA Conference League in his second spell in charge before leaving at the end of last season. He began his managerial career at Preston North End in 1998 before spending 11 years at Everton, transforming the team from relegation battlers into contenders for Europe, including a run to the Champions League qualifiers in 2005. After Moyes left Manchester United in 2014, he managed Spanish club Real Sociedad and Sunderland. He is poised to take over an Everton side who have won only 3 league matches this season and have become regulars in the fight against relegation despite an unbroken top-flight run of over 70 years. Former Mexico coach Miguel Herrera was presented as Costa Rica's new soccer manager ahead of the 2026 FIFA World Cup on Friday in the country's capital, San Jose. The 56-year-old Herrera, a former defender who led Mexico to the last 16 at the 2014 World Cup and a CONCACAF Gold Cup title in 2015, replaced Gustavo Alfaro, who left in August to coach Paraguay. Claudio Vivas, who had taken over as Costa Rica's interim manager, was sacked in November following the country's exit from the CONCACAF Nations League quarterfinals. The Mexican coach highlighted the work and generational change carried out by the previous manager and assured that he would continue with his own touch to ensure that Costa Rica is competitive and plays attractively. Costa Rica are top of Group B in the second round of North America's World Cup qualifiers and face Bahamas and Trinidad and Tobago in June as they bid to book a 4th World Cup finals appearance in a row. Reaching the World Cup will be Herrera's primary aim as the Mexican returns to international football, having also coached club football in Liga MX with Club Tijuana, Tigres and Club America. Over in the world of tennis, world number 1 Jannik Sinner's doping hearing will start on the 16th of April, according to a statement by the Court of Arbitration for Sport, also known as CAS, on Friday. Of the anabolic androgenic steroid clostebol, but was cleared by an independent tribunal in August after it accepted his explanation of unintentional contamination. However, the World Anti-Doping Agency appealed that decision at CAS in September, leaving the Italian still earlier on Friday. Sinner said he was still in the dark about the proceedings as he is preparing for his Australian Open title defence in Melbourne. Sinner begins his Melbourne Park campaign against Chile's Nicolas Jarry. The Italian did not allow the case to impact his game last season. The 23-year-old enjoyed his best year on the tour and won his second Grand Slam trophy at the United States Open. In motorsports, 2-time World Rally Championship, abbreviated to WRC, world champion Kalle Rovanperä went drifting in Japan as the Finnish Toyota Gazoo driver drifted his way through Aomori Prefecture and up Mount Iwaki. Rovanperä rounded the 69 corners from base to summit of Mount Iwaki, which had never been drifted before. The young Finn and 2-time WRC champion was greatly influenced by the famous manga throughout his youth and had long dreamed of herring up a scary mountain pass, mostly sideways. The interest in Japanese culture for Rovanperä has brought him to Japan first via WRC, and in 2023 he took part in 2 rounds of Japanese Drifting Championship, winning his debut race. Cale's father was also a former rally driver, competing in the WRC from the 1993 to 2006 seasons. Under his father's expert guidance, Cale mastered drifting by the age of 8. Rovanperä, WRC champion in 2022 and 2023, raced in just 7 of the 13 races in 2024 to recharge his batteries, but will return to full-time action in 2025. The 14-race 2025 WRC season begins on the 23rd of January with the Monte Carlo Rally. Old casts get fresh new breath of life as traditional Chinese culture characters take to ski slopes in Jilin. That's next in our Offbeat segment. Popular characters from traditional Chinese culture and history have been hitting the slopes at a ski resort in Jilin City, northeast China's Jilin province, putting on a show of snow and fire that has captured national attention. At the Vanke Songhua Lake Resort in the city, a ski club composed of amateurs and retired professional skiers has been staging unique night ski performances for the past few years. Most recently, the performers pulled stunts on the snow while dressed in full costume, such as that of the Monkey King, a famous character from the celebrated Chinese classic Journey to the West.
2019年开始进行的变装的一些拍摄，很多人就说：“你看你们能不能拍一些国风类的这个滑雪变装？”我之后就是逐渐就是尝试各种国风滑雪的这些拍摄。
Since 2021, their videos have gained attention on short video platforms, with some performances even attracting coverage from foreign media. The group draws inspiration from works such as Chinese classical literature, martial arts novels, and Beijing opera for their costumes, sparing no attention to detail. That wraps up World Today this time around. In our top story, Lebanon to work towards naming Prime Minister next week. I'm Daryl Baptist, Malaysia Madani. From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Thank you for watching, and I wish you all a memorable weekend ahead. Farewell.